The night sky burned with falling stars. Taiyang stood outside his small house in the mountains, watching the meteor shower paint streaks of light across the darkness. He had seen many such showers in his 28 years living alone in these remote hills, but something felt different tonight. One of the lights was growing brighter, coming closer, moving wrong. His eyes widened as he realized it was not a meteor at all. The object was slowing down, trying to land, failing. It crashed into the hillside half a mile from his home with a sound like thunder. Fire erupted from the impact site, turning the night orange. Taiyang ran inside and grabbed his emergency kit. He knew he should call the authorities. Any spacecraft landing on Earth required immediate reporting. But something made him hesitate. Instead, he pulled on his heavy coat, took a flashlight, and headed toward the crash site. The walk took 15 minutes through rough terrain. When he arrived, he found a crater still smoking with heat. In the center lay a small pod, barely larger than a car, its hull cracked and burning. Through the flames, he could see movement inside. Someone was alive in there. Taiyang did not think. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from his kit and sprayed the flames until they died down enough for him to approach. The metal was still hot, burning his hands through his gloves as he pried open the damaged hatch. Smoke poured out, making him cough and stumble back. When the air cleared, he looked inside and froze. A girl lay crumpled in the pilot's seat. But she was not human. Her skin glowed with a soft blue light, and her hair floated around her head like it was underwater, shimmering with colors he had no name for. Blood, darker than human blood, leaked from cuts on her arms and face. She was not moving. Taiyang climbed into the pod and checked her neck for a pulse. He found it strange and fluttering, but there. She was alive. He carefully lifted her from the wreckage, surprised by how light she was, and carried her away from the crash site. Behind them, something in the pod sparked and exploded, sending pieces of metal flying. Back at his house, Taiyang laid her on his bed and began treating her injuries. He had medical training from his years working on remote terraforming sites. Burns, cuts, a badly twisted ankle, possible broken ribs. He worked carefully, noting how her biology seemed similar enough to human that his first aid might actually help Dot as he bandaged a cut on her arm. Her eyes suddenly snapped open. They were large and golden, with no white at all, and they stared at him in absolute terror. She screamed and tried to scramble away, but her injuries made her cry out in pain instead. Taiyang held up his hands and backed away, speaking softly. "Easy, easy. You're safe. I'm not going to hurt you." She did not understand his words. She pressed herself against the wall, breathing hard, her glow brightening with fear. She said something in a language that sounded like music and wind chimes, her voice desperate and pleading. Taiyang slowly sat down on the floor, making himself smaller, less threatening. He pointed at himself. "Taiyang," he said clearly. Then he pointed at her with a questioning look. She stared at him, her breathing still rapid. She touched her chest and said something, but winced and grabbed her ribs. She tried again, slower. Nara, Taiyang repeated, and offered a small smile. For the next hour, they communicated with gestures and tone. Taiyang showed her the bandages he had used, the medical supplies, trying to make her understand he had helped her. Nara slowly began to relax, though she still watched him with cautious eyes. He brought her water, and she drank it gratefully. He offered food, but she shook her head, looking uncertain. Instead, she pointed at a small device on her belt, now cracked and sparking. She made frustrated sounds and tapped her head, then pointed at him and back at herself. A translator, Taiyang guessed. It was Broken Dot. Nara seemed to understand that he understood. She slumped against the wall, looking exhausted and lost. Tears began to fall from her golden eyes, glowing slightly as they rolled down her cheeks. She spoke in her language, words tumbling out that Taiyang could not understand, but the emotion was clear. She was alone, hurt, and afraid. Then she did something that surprised him. She slid off the bed, ignoring her pain, and knelt on the floor in front of him. Before he could stop her, she bowed low and pressed her forehead against his hand. Taiyang felt the warmth of her skin, the slight vibration of her glow. She was begging him for something. Protection, maybe. Help. A place to stay. She looked up at him with those golden eyes full of desperation and hope. He understood, even without words. This girl, this alien princess or refugee or whatever she was, had nowhere else to go. She was asking him to take care of her. Taeyang thought about his quiet life, his simple routines. He thought about the laws that said he should report this. He thought about how much trouble this would bring him. Then he looked at her frightened face and made his choice. He gently helped her stand and guided her back to the bed. He pointed at her, then at the bed, then made a sleeping gesture. He pointed at himself and then at the old couch in the corner. He pointed around the small house with an open hand, trying to show her this was her home now too. Nara's eyes filled with fresh tears, but these seemed different. She said something soft in her language and touched her hand to her heart, then reached out and briefly touched his hand. Thank you, he thought she meant. Taiyang nodded and gave her a blanket. She pulled it around herself, her glow dimming as she finally began to relax. Within minutes, exhaustion claimed her and she fell into a deep sleep. Taiyang sat on his couch and looked at the alien girl sleeping in his bed. Outside, the last of the meteors faded from the sky. He knew his life had just changed forever. He had no idea who she was, where she came from, or what trouble was following her. But he had made a promise with that nod. Even if they could not speak the same language, he would protect her. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As Nara slept, her glow pulsed gently with each breath, casting soft blue light across the dark room. Taiyang watched over her and wondered what tomorrow would bring. 3 weeks passed like water flowing down a mountain. Each day, Taiyang taught Nara new words in Korean. Each day, she healed a little more and trusted him a little deeper. They started with simple things. He would point at objects and say their names. Table, chair, water, food. Nara learned quickly, her mind sharp despite her injuries. She would repeat the words carefully, her accent strange but understandable. Sometimes she would teach him words from her language too, though Taiyang found them much harder to pronounce. On the 5th day, Nara tried to stand and walk. Her ankle was still weak and she stumbled. Taiyang caught her before she fell, and she looked up at him with surprise. He just smiled and helped her to a chair. After that, she let him help without fear. By the 2nd week, they could have basic conversations. Nara's Korean was broken, but clear enough. She told him her story in simple words, and what Taiyang learned made his blood run cold. Nara was a princess, the youngest daughter of an emperor who ruled over many worlds. Her father had been a good man, she said, who wanted peace. But her uncle wanted power instead. One night, soldiers loyal to her uncle came to the palace. They killed her father while he slept. They killed her 3 older siblings too, hunting them through the halls. Nara survived because of her guard, a man named Davin who had protected her since she was small. He fought the soldiers while she ran to the escape pod. The last thing she saw was Davin falling, arrows of energy piercing his body. As the pod launched into space, she told this story with dry eyes, sitting at Taiyang's kitchen table. Her glow had dimmed as she spoke. When she finished, she looked at him and said simply, "I am last. Uncle wants me dead. Then he is safe." Taiyang understood. As long as she lived, she was a threat to her uncle's stolen throne. That was why she had crashed here, running until her pod gave out. "You're safe here," Taiyang told her. He meant it. During those weeks, Taiyang worked on her broken translator using parts from her crash pod. He was good with machines, had spent years fixing old terraforming equipment. On the 18th day, he got it working again. When Nara put the small device behind her ear and it flickered to life, her whole face lit up. "Can you understand me now?" she asked, and the translator turned her musical language into perfect Korean in Taiyang's ears. "Yes," he said, grinning. "Perfectly." Nara laughed, the first real laugh he had heard from her. "Oh, this is wonderful. Do you know how frustrating it has been trying to explain things with only simple words?" They talked for hours that night. Really talked. Nara told him about her world, about the vast empire her family had ruled for generations. She told him about other alien species, about ships that could cross between stars, about technologies that seemed like magic to Taiyang, and she asked him about Earth, about humans. She was curious about everything. Why did he live alone? What did his machines do? How did humans survive in such a harsh environment with such basic technology? Taiyang explained about the terraforming projects, now mostly abandoned, about how humanity had reached for the stars, but never quite made it far, about his choice to live simply in the mountains, away from crowded cities. Nara watched him repair a broken water pump one day, and she was amazed. "You fixed this with just your hands and basic tools," she said. "On my world, we would use fabricators and automated systems. But you just figure it out." "Humans are good at figuring things out," Taiyang said with a shrug. "We have to be. We don't have the fancy technology." He did not know it, but Nara was beginning to see something special in humanity. Something her people had lost: resilience, adaptability, the ability to survive and thrive even when everything was against them. She started helping around the house. At first, Taiyang protested, but she insisted. She learned to cook human food, though she found the spices strange. She helped him with repairs, her small hands useful for reaching tight spaces. She even learned to chop wood, though she was not very good at it. Life fell into a peaceful rhythm. Some mornings, Taiyang would wake to find Nara already up, watching the sunrise from the window, her glow soft in the early light. Some evenings, they would sit together, and she would tell him stories of distant worlds, while he told her old human legends. But peace never lasts forever. Taiyang's nearest neighbor was a woman named Bora, an old soldier who lived 3 miles down the mountain. She came by every few weeks to trade supplies. When she arrived one afternoon and saw Nara, her eyes went hard. "Taiyang, who is this?" Bora asked in a voice that expected answers. Taiyang had prepared for this moment. "A friend who needs help." Bora looked at Nara's glowing skin, her strange hair, her golden eyes. "That's an alien. You're supposed to report alien contact. It's the law." "I know the law," Taiyang said quietly. "But she's in danger. I won't turn her over to people who might send her back to die." Bora and Taiyang stared at each other for a long moment. Nara stood very still, understanding enough to know this was important. Finally, Bora sighed. "I was a soldier for 20 years. I know what it looks like when someone's running from something bad." She looked at Nara. "You running from something bad, girl?" Nara met her eyes and nodded. "My uncle killed my family. He will kill me if he finds me." Bora was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "Okay, I'll keep your secret. But you need to be careful. Crash pods don't go unnoticed forever." She was right. 2 days later, Taiyang received a message on his old communication terminal. Government investigators had detected the crash site. They would arrive in 2 weeks to examine it and question anyone in the area. That night, Taiyang and Nara sat together, planning her escape deeper into the wilderness. But when he suggested she leave, Nara shook her head. Where would I go? She asked softly. My home is taken. My family is dead. Every world in the Empire knows my face. Bounty hunters will search everywhere. She looked at him with sad eyes. I have nowhere else in all the galaxy. Only here. Only you. Taiyang realized she was right. Running would just delay the inevitable. They needed a better plan, but he did not know what. Outside, the wind howled through the mountains, and somewhere far away, dangerous people were starting the search. They came on a cold morning when frost covered the ground. Taiyang was outside chopping wood when he saw 3 figures walking up the mountain path. They were not human. These aliens were tall and armored, with skin like dark metal and eyes that glowed red. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known fear. Bounty hunters, Taiyang realized. His stomach dropped. He dropped the axe and ran inside. Nara, hide in the cellar now. But it was too late. The hunters were already at the door. The leader, bigger than the others, simply kicked it open. The wood splintered and crashed inward. We know she is here, the leader said in perfect Korean, his translator working flawlessly. The tracking signal from her pod led us here. Give us the Veltheran princess, and we will leave peacefully. Taiyang stood between the hunters and the room where Nara had emerged, her face pale. She's under my protection. You're not taking her. The leader laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Your protection? Human, do you understand what you are saying? I am Carvin, hunter of 1,000 worlds. I have killed beings that could tear you apart with a thought. You are nothing. Maybe, Taiyang said, his heart pounding. But she's still not leaving. Carvin's expression changed to something like amusement. I respect courage, even foolish courage. The bounty says alive or dead. Dead is easier. Step aside or join her in death. Taiyang did not move. Carvin sighed and moved forward, fast as a striking snake. His armored hand reached for Taiyang's throat. But Taiyang was not there anymore. He had spent years in these mountains, learning to move on ice and rock. He was not fast like the alien, but he knew how to dodge. He grabbed a metal rod from his tool bench and swung it hard at Carvin's knee joint. The hunter grunted in surprise and stumbled. Taiyang rolled away and came up with the fire extinguisher, spraying it directly into the alien's face. Carvin roared and swung blindly. His fist caught Taiyang in the ribs and sent him flying into the wall. Pain exploded through his chest. Something was broken. But Taiyang forced himself to stand, spitting blood. Is that all? He gasped. I've had worse from falling downstairs. This was the moment the hunters learned something about humans. They do not stop. Pain that would cripple other species just makes humans angry. Adrenaline floods their system, turning them into something beyond reason. The other 2 hunters moved to help Carvin, but the door exploded inward again. Boris stood there with 5 other settlers, all armed with hunting rifles and tools. They might have been old, but they had all been soldiers once. Nobody touches our people, Boris said, and opened fire. The battle was chaos. Energy weapons against primitive bullets. Advanced armor against human fury. The hunters were stronger, faster, better equipped. But they had never fought humans before. They did not understand that humans do not care about odds or power levels. When humans decide to protect something, they fight until they cannot fight anymore. Taiyang grabbed a broken piece of pipe and went after Carvin again. The hunter blocked his swing, but Taiyang used the moment to kick a table into his legs. Carvin fell, and Taiyang jumped on him, hitting him again and again with the pipe. Carvin threw him off, but he was bleeding now. His armor cracked. What are you? He shouted in disbelief. I'm someone who keeps his promises, Taiyang said, and attacked again. Across the room, Nara watched in horror and awe. She had never seen anyone fight like this. On her world, Battles were clean, fought with shields and energy weapons from a distance. This was brutal and desperate and somehow beautiful. Then she felt something strange inside her, a pressure building in her head. Her fear and anger were mixing with something else, something she had never felt before. Her hands began to glow brighter than ever. Without understanding what she was doing, Nara screamed and thrust her hands forward. A wave of pure psychic force exploded from her, hitting all three hunters at once. They stumbled, clutching their heads, their coordination gone. The settlers used the moment. More bullets flew. One hunter went down, his armor finally giving out. Another ran for the door, wounded and afraid. Carvin backed away, his red eyes wide with shock. "This is not over," he snarled. "The bounty is too high. Others will come. You cannot protect her forever, human." "Watch me," Taiyang said. Carvin looked at him one more time, then at his fallen companion, then at the settlers who stood ready to fight again. He made a decision. Grabbing his wounded fellow, he retreated out the door and into the forest dot as soon as they were gone. Taiyang collapsed. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the pain was becoming real. His ribs were definitely broken. His face was covered in blood. But he was smiling. Nara ran to him, tears streaming down her glowing face. "You're hurt. Why did you fight? They could have killed you." "You're under my protection," Taiyang said simply, wincing. "I told you that." Bora knelt beside them, checking his injuries. "You're an idiot," she said, but her voice was kind. A brave idiot, but still an idiot. The other settlers gathered around, looking at Nara with new eyes. One old man spoke up. "So, you're the princess these bastards are hunting?" Nara nodded. Afraid of what they would say, the man shrugged. "Well, you're Taiyang's friend. That makes you our friend too. Anyone comes looking for you, they'll have to go through all of us." The others nodded in agreement. They had seen her power, yes, but more importantly, they had seen her cry over Taiyang's injuries. They had seen her willing to die rather than let him fight alone. That was enough for them. But as they tended to wounds and cleaned up the damage, the captured hunter laughed weakly from where he lay tied up. "You think you won? The bounty on her is worth 100 planets. Every hunter in the galaxy will come. And her uncle, he will not stop until she's dead." Taiyang looked at Nara, then at the hunter. An idea was forming in his mind. A crazy, dangerous idea. "Then maybe we should stop running," he said slowly. "Maybe it's time to go after her uncle instead." Everyone stared at him. Bora spoke first. "You want to attack an alien empire? With what army?" Taiyang smiled despite his pain. "With the one thing they don't expect, humans." Nara's eyes widened. "You cannot be serious. You would risk your world, your people, for me? You're one of our people now," Taiyang said. He looked around at the settlers, who were nodding. "That's what humans do. We protect our own, and we finish what we start." Outside, the sun was setting over the mountains, painting the sky red like blood and fire. The battle had been won, but the war was just beginning. Taiyang spent 3 days recovering from his broken ribs. During that time, he made calls to people he had not spoken to in years. Old friends from his time in the military. Engineers who had worked on failed space projects. Smugglers who operated in the gray areas between law and chaos. On the 4th day, a man arrived at the mountain house. His name was Hyan, and he wore the kind of smile that said he had seen everything and been impressed by none of it. He was a smuggler, someone who moved illegal goods between Earth settlements and occasionally dealt with alien traders. "Taiyang." "My old friend," Hyan said, looking around at the destroyed furniture and bullet holes. "You always did know how to make life interesting. So, you want to start a war with an alien empire? With what? Exactly?" "With proof," Taiyang said. He gestured to Nara. Her uncle killed the emperor and stole the throne. If we can get evidence of that and broadcast it to the Veltherin people, they will turn on him. Hyan raised an eyebrow. And where is this evidence? On Veltherin military stations, Nara said quietly. My father kept records of everything. Surveillance, communications, official documents. If my uncle killed him, there will be proof. But it will be heavily guarded. Of course it will be, Hyan said. He thought for a moment, then grinned. I know a crew who might be crazy enough to help. They owe me a favor, and I know where we can get a ship. Over the next 2 weeks, Hyan assembled a team. There was Mira, a former pilot who had flown combat missions during Earth's border wars. There was Quan, an engineer who could hack any system if given enough time. There was Jiho, a soldier who had left the military, but not the warrior spirit. And there was Bora, who refused to be left behind. The ship was called the Baekdu, an old human warship from the expansion era. It had been scheduled for scrap, but Hyan had connections. They took it anyway, along with whatever alien technology they could steal, borrow, or salvage from Nara's crash pod. The Baekdu was not pretty. It was not fast, but it was tough, built by humans who knew that their technology was inferior and compensated by making everything stronger, more redundant, harder to kill. They trained for a week. Nara taught them about Veltherin security systems, about the layout of military stations, about the culture and customs of her people. In return, the humans taught her how to fight like they did, not with honor or elegance, but with efficiency and brutality. Nara discovered her psychic abilities could do more than just push. She could sense emotions, could sometimes predict where an enemy would move. Quan suggested they weaponize this, use it for tactics. Nara was hesitant at first, but Taiyang convinced her. Your powers are a gift, he said. Use them to save your people. During training, Taiyang and Nara grew closer. They would sit together in the evening, planning the mission, and sometimes they would just talk about small things. Favorite foods, childhood memories, dreams for the future. One night, Nara asked him, "Why are you doing this? You could die. Your friends could die. For what? A throne on a world you will never see." Taiyang looked at her for a long moment. "Do you remember the first night when you begged me to protect you?" She nodded. "I made a promise that night. Humans keep their promises. All the way to the end, whatever that end looks like." Nara felt something warm spread through her chest. On her world, such loyalty was rare. People served out of duty or fear, not love. But Taiyang served because he had chosen to, and that choice meant everything. "I think I am falling in love with you," she said softly, surprising herself. Taiyang smiled. "Let's survive this mission first. Then we can talk about complicated things." The mission began on a moonless night. The Baekdu jumped into Veltherin space using coordinates Nara provided. Immediately, alarms began to sound. An unauthorized ship, transmitting human signatures, had just appeared near a military station. But the humans did not run. Instead, they attacked. Mira flew the Baekdu like a dancer, spinning and diving in ways Veltherin pilots never would. Their ships were smooth and calculated. The Baekdu moved like a brawler, unpredictable and aggressive. Defense satellites tried to lock on and could not keep up. "They fly like their ships are too valuable to risk," Myra laughed over the comm. "Our ship is basically garbage. I can do anything I want." They crashed through the station's outer shields using a tactic that made Nara gasp. Taiyang had attached explosive charges to the Baekdu's hull. When they hit the shields, he detonated them. The explosion disrupted the shield harmonics just long enough for them to slip through. "You blew up your own ship?" Nara shouted. "Just the outside bits," Taiyang said calmly. "We can fix it later." They docked violently, cutting through the station's hull with plasma torches. The crew poured in, weapons ready. Velthoran soldiers met them, but they were not prepared for human tactics. Jiho fought with brutal efficiency, using the environment as a weapon. He threw furniture, used corners for ambush, fought dirty. Quan hacked security systems while moving, his fingers flying over a portable terminal. Bora provided covering fire, her old sniper instincts still sharp dot, and Nara led them deeper, her psychic senses guiding them past patrols and traps. When they encountered locked doors, she could sense the guards on the other side and warn the team. When they were surrounded, her powers could create confusion and fear in their enemies. Minds dot, they reached the data core after 30 minutes of fighting. Quan began downloading everything while the others held the entrance. Alarms screamed. Reinforcements were coming. How long? Taiyang shouted. 3 minutes. Quan shouted back. We don't have 3 minutes. Then you better make 3 minutes. They held the corridor like ancient warriors defending a mountain pass. Wave after wave of soldiers came, and wave after wave were driven back. The humans fought with a ferocity that terrified the Velthoran troops. These primitive beings should have been easy to kill, but they just kept coming, kept fighting, kept refusing to die. Nara stood in the center, her hands glowing, and she finally understood what made humans special. They were fragile, yes, weak compared to many species, but they did not let that stop them. They adapted, they improvised, they overcame. And when they cared about something, they would burn the whole galaxy down to protect it. Done. Quan yelled. I've got everything. Recordings, documents, all of it. They ran back to the ship, fighting every step. Taiyan was shot twice, but kept moving. Jiho took a blast to the shoulder, but did not slow down. They poured into the Baekdu and Mira launched immediately, not even waiting for the docking clamps to fully release. A Velthoran battlecruiser appeared, massive and deadly. It began charging weapons that could destroy the Baekdu in a single shot. Taiyang? Mira said, her voice tight. Taiyang looked at the cruiser, at their damaged ship, at the data they had stolen. He made a decision that was completely insane and completely human. Ram them. What? Ram them. Full speed at their shield generator. When we hit, I'll detonate the remaining charges. It will create a gap in their shields. Then we fly through it and run. That will destroy half our ship. We only need half a ship to get home. Myra laughed, wild and free. I love working with humans. She aimed the Baekdu directly at the massive cruiser and pushed the engines to maximum. The cruiser's crew panicked. Nothing in their training prepared them for an enemy ship deliberately ramming them. They tried to adjust their shields, but Taiyang detonated the charges at the perfect moment. The explosion was massive. The Baekdu's front section tore apart, but the shield generator on the cruiser exploded too. A gap appeared in their defenses, and Mira threaded the Baekdu through it like a needle through cloth. They were away, limping but alive, carrying the evidence that would change everything. The Baekdu limped through space toward the Velthoran homeworld, trailing debris and atmosphere. Half the ship was gone, exposing corridors to the void. But the crew was alive, and they had the evidence. We have one chance at this, Hyan said, bandaging a cut on his head. We broadcast the evidence on every channel we can reach. If it works, the people rise up. If it fails, we die. When you say it like that, it sounds so simple, Quan muttered, working on the broadcast equipment. Nara stood at the front window, looking at her homeworld growing larger in the distance. She had never thought she would see it again. The planet was beautiful, covered in purple oceans and silver cities that glowed like jewels. Somewhere down there, in the greatest palace ever built, her uncle sat on a throne that was not his. Taiyang came to stand beside her, his arm in a sling from his injuries. Are you ready? I am terrified, she said honestly. What if the people do not believe me? What if they think I am a traitor working with aliens? Then we make them believe, Taiyang said. That's what humans do. We tell the truth until people listen. The Imperial fleet detected them when they were still an hour from the planet. 20 warships, each one 100 times more powerful than the Baekdu. They formed the wall between the human ship and the homeworld. A message came through. It was Nara's uncle, his face appearing on their screens. He looked older than Nara remembered, his features twisted by anger and fear. You should have stayed hidden, little niece, he said. Now you bring these primitives to die with you. Surrender, and I will kill them quickly. Nara stepped forward, her chin raised. I will never surrender to you, murderer. You killed my father. You killed my brothers and sister. But you will not kill me. And you will not kill these people who have shown me more honor than you ever knew. Her uncle's face darkened. Then you will all burn. I am giving the order now. The Imperial fleet began moving forward, weapons charging. On the Baekdu, alarms screamed. Quan, is the broadcast ready? Taiyang asked calmly. Ready. Then send it. All channels. Maximum power. Let everyone hear the truth. Quan pressed the button, and suddenly every communication device in Veltheran space was receiving the same transmission. Evidence of the old Emperor's murder. Video of the uncle giving orders. Audio of him planning the deaths of his family. Financial records showing bribes and deals. Everything laid bare for all to see. And then Nara spoke, broadcasting live to her entire world. My people, I am Nara, daughter of Emperor Thalon, who was killed by his own brother. I speak to you from a human ship, damaged and broken but still flying. These humans, these beings you have been taught to ignore as primitive, have shown me what true honor means. They fought for me when they had no reason to. They risked everything to bring you this truth. She paused, and her voice grew stronger. My uncle calls them primitive. But I have seen them repair machines with their bare hands. I have seen them fight enemies stronger than them and win through courage and cleverness. I have seen them keep promises, even when it cost them everything. If this is what it means to be primitive, then I am proud to stand with primitives. On the planet below, in millions of homes and buildings, people watched. They saw the evidence. They heard their lost princess. And they began to understand. The Imperial fleet hesitated. Captains were receiving messages from their crews, from their families. Is this true? Did the Emperor really murder his brother? Then one ship, a destroyer on the left flank, turned its weapons away from the Baekdu. Its captain broadcast on open channels. I served Emperor Thalon for 20 years. If this evidence is true, then his daughter is the rightful heir. I will not fire on her. Another ship joined him. Then another. Then 5 more. The fleet was breaking apart. Captains choosing loyalty to the old emperor over orders from the new one. But 8 ships remained loyal to the uncle. They opened fire. The Baekdu could not dodge, too damaged to maneuver. Weapons locked on. But before they could fire, the rebel ships threw themselves in the way, their shields absorbing the blasts meant for the humans. A battle erupted in space above the homeworld. Brother fought brother, friend fought friend. But more and more ships were joining Nara's side. Down on the planet, riots broke out. People poured into the streets, demanding answers. The uncle's face appeared on the screen again, but now he looked desperate. This is a trick. The girl is lying. The humans have manipulated her. Show them your hands, Taiyang said quietly to Nara. She understood. She held up her hands to the camera, and they began to glow with her psychic power. Energy danced between her fingers, beautiful and terrifying. It was a power only the royal bloodline possessed, impossible to fake. I am Nara, daughter of Thalon, bearer of the royal gift. she said. "And I claim my throne." The effect was immediate. All across the empire, people knelt. Even some of the ships loyal to the uncle wavered. The royal power was sacred, undeniable proof of her heritage. The uncle's personal guard, the most loyal troops he had, suddenly turned on him. They had seen the evidence. They had seen the royal power. They knew he was a murderer and a thief. They dragged him from the throne room, and his screams were broadcast to the entire empire. The battle ended. The rebel ships escorted the bike dude down to the planet's surface. As they descended, Nara looked at the human crew with tears in her eyes. "You saved my life," she said. "You saved my entire world. We just helped you take back what was yours," Taiyang said. He was bleeding again from his wounds, but he was smiling. "What happens now is up to you." The bike dude landed in the capital city, in a plaza that could hold 1,000,000 people. And 1,000,000 people were there, waiting. As the crew emerged, they saw an entire civilization bowing to their princess. But Nara did not go to them immediately. First, she turned to Taiyang and the crew. She knelt before them, pressing her forehead to the ground in the deepest gesture of respect her people knew. "You are my saviors," she said. "You are my teachers. You showed me what it means to be truly strong. I offer you anything you desire. Wealth, land, titles, anything." Taiyang helped her stand, ignoring the pain in his body. "We don't need wealth. But there is something we want. Name it. Recognize Earth as an ally. Share your technology with us. Help humanity reach the stars. Not as servants or primitives, but as equals." Nara smiled, and her glow brightened. "It will be done. I swear it on the throne I am about to take." The coronation happened 3 days later. Nara was crowned empress in a ceremony that lasted hours. She wore the traditional robes. She spoke the ancient words. She accepted the crown that her father had worn, but she made changes too. She declared that Earth would be a protected world, an ally of the empire. She established trade agreements, technology exchanges, cultural programs. She appointed ambassadors, and many of them were the settlers from the mountain who had first protected her. Bora became the official liaison between Earth and the Veltheran Empire. Haiyan started a shipping company that would make him very rich. Mira was given command of a new ship, the fastest in the fleet. Quan became the head of the technology exchange program. And Taiyang was offered the position of prince consort, to stand beside the empress and advise her. They were alone in the palace gardens when she asked him. The gardens were beautiful, filled with plants that glowed in the darkness, casting soft-colored light across the paths. "I am asking you to give up your simple life," Nara said. "To live in a palace, to help me rule an empire. It is a heavy burden." Taiyang looked at her, at this girl who had crashed into his life and changed everything. He thought about his quiet house in the mountains. He thought about the adventure they had shared. He thought about the future that was opening before them. "You know," he said, "I told you once that I like fixing complicated problems." She smiled. "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes. But I have a condition. Anything. We make sure that what happened to you never happens to anyone else. Human or Veltheran or any other species. We build something better. Together." Nara took his hand, and her glow pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Together, she agreed. Above them, stars filled the sky. Human ships and Veltheran ships flew side by side, beginning to explore the galaxy as partners. And on Earth, in a small house in the mountains, a light was left burning in the window, because Taiyang would return there sometimes to remember where it all started, to remember the night a princess crashed in the mountains and begged him for help, to remember that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the simplest choice, not to help someone in need, not to keep a promise, not to be human.